Hi, a very good evening to all of you. As you all know, I, Devul Jain Dige, a practicing advocate of the Bombay High Court, shall be speaking today about the topic succession planning. Before I start my presentation, I would like to firstly give a short introduction about myself. I am basically the topper of Mumbai University in the subject of arbitration. I have done my masters in law in constitutional and administrative law, and I have been practicing for over 3 years right now. I basically practice in all types of commercial, property, civil, insolvency, corporate and corporate criminal matters. Today I shall be speaking about the topic the all about succession, which you all know. Basically, before I start, I would like to thank the FMJPI group. As you all know, FMJPI group is one of the largest and India's #1 facilities management network, which is initiated by Mr. Nilesh Barot in 2015. Since inception, FMJPI have started multiple drives, of which we are fortunately part of today, to support facilities management industry that are free of cost. The purpose of FMJPI group is to support facilities management industry for end-to-end solutions for any kind of requirements relating to facilities management. So, as you all know, the topic is succession planning. Basically, now I will give you the flow of the presentation or the webinar. First, we shall be dealing with the how, the what, the when and the why of succession planning. That is, what is succession planning, when is the succession planning to be done, why succession planning is to be done, and how succession planning is to be done. Then we will deal with a situation, what happens if we don't do succession planning, what are the benefits of doing a succession planning, what is a will, what are the various types of will, can you revoke your earlier will, how do you do that, what is the benefit of registration of will, what is the difference between registration of will and deposit of will, what is the advantages of registration and deposit of will, what are the various types of gifts or properties which you give under the will, what are the advantages and disadvantages of all of them, and also what happens if there are insufficient properties to cover all the gifts or what we call legacies given under the will, and what is the procedure that has to be followed on the death of the testator, that is the person making the will. So, testator is basically the person making a will. So, first question is, what is succession planning? Now, succession planning is basically planning your succession, as in how do you want to part with your properties after your death. How the succession planning is to be done? It is to be done by preparing a simple document that is called will. Will represents the desires of a particular person as to how he wishes to part with his property or apply his properties after his death. Then when is succession planning to be done? Now, ideally a succession planning is to be done at the age of 30. That is my humble opinion. This is due to the fact that by the end of 30, most of us are married. You have various priorities coming into life, various responsibilities coming into life, and there are 6 and 7 years that have passed since you have been working. You have accumulated a bit of wealth. So, first succession planning has to be done around the age of 30, and then of course you can always revise and revisit your succession planning and change it depending upon your situations that are changing. Why succession planning is to be done, that I will deal with along with the importance of succession planning. Now, coming into a situation, what happens if there is no succession planning? Now, I'll give you an example. If there is no succession planning, your properties will be divided as per the rules of succession that are applicable to an individual person. Now, these rules of succession are applicable as per the religion of a particular person. For example, for a Hindu male dying intestate, all of his properties are divided equally amongst all his heirs. Now, class 1 heirs include your mother, your wife, and all your children. So, your properties will be divided equally among all of these heirs. So, suppose it if you have 2 children, 1 wife and your mother surviving you, then all your properties including the flat, 25% ownership will be given to both of your children, your wife and your mother. Now, why should you do succession planning? Now, there are various benefits of succession planning. The first and foremost benefit is it helps to reduce litigation. Now, and it also helps in practical division of properties. Now, how does it help you in a practical division of properties? I'll give you an example. Like I said, there were maybe several consequences which you would not have contemplated when you had not made a will. For example, let's say if you have a flat, the flat, and you have your mother surviving you, and you have two children, so 25% ownership goes to each of your children, your mother and your wife. If your mother does not make his or her own will, then mother's property will be divided equally among her class 1 heirs, which includes husband and all her children. So giving that situation, the 25% flat ownership rights which she owns will be given to your brother also, if you have a brother, which is a consequence you would have never even thought about, because 12.5 and 12.5 would be divided between both the children. Again, that will be divided among, because you have already passed away, so your wife and your children 6.25%, and 12.5% goes to your brother. So this is a situation that you would have never even thought of or imagined, and this is what can happen. All these complexities can happen if you don't do succession planning. Second most advantage is you can do various permutations and combinations. Like for example, let's say if you want to, because of your certain responsibilities, want to give certain cash to certain relatives, maybe your sister whom you love, maybe your niece to whom you have certain responsibilities. These all things can be done in a succession planning, and if you don't do succession planning, they will not get anything, because your sister is not your class 1 heir for a Hindu male. Hindu male includes a Buddhist male, Jain male and Sikh male. So they will not get any share in this property. Maybe you have certain responsibilities that you want to fulfill, that will not happen. Also, you can significantly reduce disputes. Now, how can you reduce disputes? No person has two properties that are equal in value or equal in size. So let's say if you have two children and if you have two properties that are not of equal sizes, so both the children would want a property which is more in value, or which is more beneficial to them. Technically, if you die intestate, that is not doing a succession planning, both the children will get equal share in both the properties. So 50% ownership in both the properties, both the children will get. So again, there will be an infighting among them. Infighting leads to a lot of problems, in terms of one brother might just dispose of his share and induct a third party. A third party is incentivized to purchase this property at a very minimal rate or a very significantly discounted price, and the other heir has to go through all the legal battle which he may not be willing to go through. So all these complexities can be avoided. You can gift one property to one son, other property to another son, and whatever is the balance you feel a particular son is getting less in amount, you can always compensate him with other properties. Also, it is very routine to have allegations between children about the gold that their parents held, because always one of the heir might be a nominee to a particular locker. So there are always allegations that a particular son removed certain gold jewelry or certain gold ornaments from that particular locker, and the disputes can be many, and that will lead to wastage of your property. So no person would ideally want that his properties be wasted in such manner, his hard-earned money is going in such manner and being destroyed. Thirdly, also you can always place conditions and create a lot of situations depending upon your financial planning. For example, I can always, if I want to always give my properties to my children only, I can, and at the same time I want to protect my wife. Instead of giving her a property, I can always direct my children that you will get all these properties subject to you taking care of your mother and giving her 50,000 rupees every month for a maintenance. Only if you take good care of your mother will you be allowed to succeed to my properties. So all these permutations and combinations, these conditions that can be imposed, can only be imposed when you have done a succession planning. If you don't do succession planning, in simple way, all the properties will be divided equally among the class 1 heirs. Also, you may desire that, particularly for businessmen, you may desire that your son or your child who is going to run the business gets all the shares in your business, all the private companies that you own, and you may not want to give it to the other child. So that is something that can be ensured by succession planning, that the particular company shares are given to that particular child who is going to manage and succeed to your business, and other children can be compensated otherwise. So all these things can be done during succession planning. Otherwise, both the children will get equal shares, and the shares will be divided among both the or all the three children equally, or even your mother if it is she's there equally, and your wife also. Now next topic is the benefits. Another benefit of succession planning is you can always prepare an inventory of all the assets you own. Typically every person has a mindset or has a habit in India that he keeps certain properties reserve. He does not disclose certain amounts of cash or certain bank accounts to everybody. He keeps it very secretive, and that's his personal earnings. We typically write it down in a diary or somewhere that our heirs can find. But if that diary is destroyed or something happens to that particular piece of paper, then they will never come to know of the property you have left behind. And it also enables you to make a proper inventory of all your articles. So that is another advantage of succession planning. Now the next topic is, what are the types of will? Basically there are two types of will: privileged will and unprivileged will. Privileged will is basically for armed forces. Privileged will has certain exceptions in the manner in which it can be executed, as in a person of armed forces can always direct the other side, his counterpart, to sign will on his behalf, and that will be considered valid. But for people like us, it is unprivileged will. Now what is unprivileged will is, it is for normal people like us, where you have to comply with detailed requirements of the law to execute a valid will. So what are those requirements? Firstly, you have to sign the will by yourself. Secondly, the will has to be attested by two witnesses. That is mandatory, and that is how a valid will comes into effect. Now what happens if you make a will and subsequently you acquire a lot of properties? How do you deal with those properties? So after preparing a will, you can always prepare a codicil. A codicil is basically a supplementary will. It is to be executed in the same manner as you execute a will, but you can deal with those properties that are left, either you forgot to mention or you acquired subsequently. You can deal with those properties and bequeath or gift those properties as you want by the codicil. You should not prepare subsequent will, because while you prepare a subsequent will, you will revoke the earlier will. So if you want to only deal with properties you have forgotten to deal with, then you have to prepare a codicil. Now how do you revoke a will? What happens if I prepared a will but I now don't want to, I want to change my will, I want to change the manner in which I am distributing my properties? In such a situation, either if you want, you can revoke the will. You have to revoke the will in the same manner as you have executed the will, that is, sign it by yourself and along with two witnesses. Then the will be revoked on a piece of paper. You can sign it, term the document as revocation of will, and the will be revoked. Or you can prepare a subsequent will. A subsequent will always revokes the earlier will. So these are the two manners in which you can revoke a will. Now what are the advantages of preparing a will, or rather registering a will? Now there are two types of registrations that you can do. Either you can register a will, that is registering it in the same manner as you register any particular document, your sale deed, your leave and license agreement, your lease agreement, or you can deposit a will. Now what is the difference between these two? See, in a registration of will, you are basically registering the will, a copy of will, with the registrar and retaining the original with yourself, and any person after your death can apply for a certified copy of that will. If they don't find the original will, they can obtain a certified copy from the registrar, and that will be held to be valid. In deposit of will, basically you are submitting the original will in a sealed envelope to the registrar. So even he will not know the contents of the will. It will be kept in a fireproof box with him, and whenever, either if you want to take it back, you want to revoke your will, you can apply to him. Only you will have the powers to take that envelope back from him, or your power of attorney will have the power to take it back from him, and then you can take it back, and subsequently if you desire, you can redeposit a separate will or register a separate will. No person other than you will be allowed to take back that will, but that ensures complete secrecy of that will. If you desire that I don't want to share the contents of will with anybody, and he keeps it in a fireproof box, when you pass away, he will open that box before your heirs, He will show you the contents, he will register that particular will, keep the original envelope back into the sealed envelope, and give you a copy if you want to apply for a certified copy. In registration, he will only after your death give a certified copy straight away, because he only has a certified copy with him, the original is available with you. So this is the difference between the two of them. What are the advantages of registering a will? Basically, the three most popular advantages are: firstly, you are ensured that even if your original will or the copies of will which you have with you or which you have given it to someone is destroyed, then your children can always get a certified copy of that will. So that is the first biggest advantage. Secondly, if you so desire, you can keep a secrecy of your will. That okay, in India, a lot of people don't make wills because they fear the fact that okay, if I have favored a particular child or for a particular reason, then the other children or the other heirs will get angry at me, and I don't want to spoil my relations right now. So you can maintain a secrecy of your will. You can deposit your will with him, and nobody will be able to see it. And only after you have passed away, your children or your heirs can get a certified copy of that will. That is the second advantage. Thirdly, you are always protected that authentic copy of the will is always safe with the registrar. So your succession planning is not defeated in case any person who is adversely affected by the will desires that the will may be destroyed or may not even pass on that will to the other heirs or other people who are getting properties under the will. He may want to destroy it. So even if that original will is destroyed or copy of which is destroyed, there is an authentic copy available. They can always approach the registrar and take the copy. So this is the advantages, three most significant advantages of preparing a will. There are other advantages, but these are the three main advantages. Now coming to the next topic, that what will happen and how do you deal with the succession planning. So always what are the types of gifts that you are giving under the succession planning. So these are very much important because these depend upon the nature of properties that you are giving, and each gift, or what we in legal terms refer to as legacies, has its own advantages and disadvantages, and they have a particular significance even in case of your properties are insufficient to meet all the gifts that you have given under the will. Then these legacies are important because they are abated in a proportionate manner, which I'll come to a bit later. So firstly, like I said, how do we deal with succession planning and what are the types of legacies? So basically there are 5 types of legacies. First and foremost is a specific legacy. In a specific legacy, you are exactly identifying which property you are giving to which person. For example, I say that my flat at Goregaon is to be given to my son A. Here I am clearly describing the property I want to give and to whom I want to give. This is called specific legacy. Second type of gift or legacy is called demonstrative legacy. So in a demonstrative legacy, you are giving a particular property, but you are identifying the from where that property has to be funded. For example, I say that I am giving 10,000 rupees to my son A, which is to be funded out of my land at or out of my property at Goregaon. So here this is a demonstrative legacy where I have given a particular gift, and I have also specified the funds from which that gift has to be financed. So this is a demonstrative legacy. Third is an annuity legacy. Like I said, you can always gift somebody a definite amount of money or other properties for her lifetime. For example of an annuity legacy is, I say that I give 50,000 rupees to my wife for her lifetime. So till the time she is alive, every month she has to be given 50,000 rupees. So this is called annuity legacy. It is valid till her lifetime. So till her lifetime, those heirs who are getting the properties or executor who is executing the will has to give 50,000 rupees out of my properties for her maintenance. So I can always protect her in that manner if I want to, and not give her a specific property. The fourth type of legacy is a general legacy. In a general legacy, you are just saying that you want to give XYZ thing to a particular person. You are not specifically giving any particular property to any particular person. You are just saying that a particular thing has to be given. You are not even identifying the fund from which it has to be given, or the finance from which, or the property from which it has to be sourced. For example, I say 10,000 rupees is to be given to my niece, 1 lakh rupees is to be given to my sister, a diamond ring has to be gifted to my wife. So this is a general legacy. I am just generally describing what I want to give. And the last and the most important is a residuary legacy, or a residuary legatee is a person who takes that residuary share. A residuary legacy is basically whatever you have not given to other people will be given to that particular person. So you are saying that all that I have not mentioned above, herein above, I am giving it to this my son A. So whatever you have not mentioned above will, and whatever you own at the time of your death, whether you have accumulated these properties prior to the execution of will or after the execution of will, but if you have not mentioned it in your will, it will go to that particular person or your son A. So when you are appointing a residuary legacy, it is of utmost importance that you appoint him with care, because he will get not only your properties which you have forgot to mention, but future properties also. So if you buy a flat later on and you forgot to mention it in your will, or don't prepare a codicil, that will also go to that particular residuary legatee. So when you appoint a residuary legatee, it has to be done with utmost care. Now the disadvantages of each of the legacies. If specific legacy is given and that property does not exist, like I said, my flat at Goregaon did not exist, which I have given it to my son A, then that legacy abates. That means that legacy will not take effect. In a demonstrative legacy, if that fund is not there from which that particular gift has to be financed from, then it will convert itself into a general legacy. So this will not abate, but it will convert itself into a general legacy. A general legacy is an ordinary legacy, so it does not really matter. These rules are not applicable. Annuity legacy, again, same rule applies, that if annuity legacy is given and if the fund is not specified, it will convert itself into a general legacy. Residuary legacy will get everything what you have not mentioned. In case if you don't appoint a residuary legatee, everything will go as per the rules of succession that is applicable to you. So those properties which you have forgotten to mention in your will go as per your rules of succession if you don't appoint a residuary legatee. So that is the concept. Now what happens if your properties are insufficient to cover all your gifts that you have given to various persons? So what happens in such a situation, and that's where all these gifts become so much important, is the fact that first your expenses have to be financed, your funeral expenses have to be financed from your properties. Next, the administrator's expenses have to be financed, means the person who is going to be administering your property and who would be dividing your property as per either the rules of succession, or if you have made a will, as per the will, he will be distributing it as per the will. So his expenses have to be then borne out of it, and then all these legacies will abate in the following order that I am saying. First and foremost, a residuary legacy will abate. So if your properties are insufficient, first the residuary legatee will take a hit. If you have appointed two residuary legatees, then both will take a hit in a proportionate capacity. For example, let's say if 100 rupees are falling short of in your property, now this 100, even if you have appointed A and B as your residuary legatees, so both will have to bear 50-50% because you have given 50-50% share to them. If you had given them 75 and 25% share in the residuary estate, then both will take a hit in the proportionate capacity. That is 75 rupees will be deducted from whatever is left over to him and 25 from him. So it will abate proportionately in all the categories. So first and foremost, the residuary legacy will abate. Secondly, your general legacy will abate. Then your annuity legacy will abate. Then your demonstrative legacy will abate. And last at the least, your specific legacy will abate. So these legacies or gifts are important for these aspects as well, that if your property falls short, it will abate in this particular order that I have mentioned, and it will abate in the proportionate capacity, like I have said. So this is the way the hierarchy moves. Now what happens when a person eventually dies? What is to be done? So when a person eventually dies, see, there are three types of certificates that are prescribed under the Indian Succession Act. First and foremost is a probate. A probate is applicable when you have prepared a will and you have appointed as a person as, or a particular 3-4 persons as executors of the will. basically executors of will are those persons who will execute your will, means who will distribute the properties as per your wishes, whom you trust that this particular person will carry into effect my will distribute the properties as per my directions in the will. So if you have appointed that particular person, then he has the right to apply for the probate, and then you have to apply for a probate because the executor is there. If the executor is not appointed, or none of the executors are willing to act as such, that they do not want to take the responsibility, or all of them have passed away, then what you have to obtain a certificate from the concerned district court or the high court is letters of administration with will annexed. So this is also applicable when there is a will, but when there is no executor or there is no person ready to act as such whom the testator has appointed, or they have all passed away or become incapable of performing their duties, then you will obtain LOA with will, and that can be obtained by any beneficiary under the will. So any legatee under the will can apply for the same and obtain letters of administration with will. Third is letters of administration without will annexed. So as the name suggests, it gives the particular person right to administer the property when there is no will. So any of the successors of the property can apply for that letters of administration without will, and he will distribute the property as per the rules of succession applicable to that particular person. And the fourth certificate is succession certificate. Now succession certificate is typically applicable only for movable properties. It is not applicable for immovable properties, first and foremost thing. Secondly, if there is an LOA taken, whether with or without will, or probate that is taken, then succession certificate abates. So it is not of use if somebody has already taken LOA for that particular movable properties or that particular debts. So then it will not be applicable, it will abate itself automatically under the law. It is only applicable to prove that you are a particular successor of a particular property, and those payments that have to be made to the particular the deceased person can be made to you, or the movable properties can be transferred to your name, and then subsequently if there is an executor, you have to transfer it to the executor. So it is basically just to proving that you are a particular successor to a property, and therefore payments made to you on account of the deceased would be valid and subsisting payments, and you have right to inherit those properties or right to claim those properties because you are one of the successors to those movable properties or those debts. So this is how the entire succession planning works. It is very much desirable that every person along with its financial planning does succession planning, because one does financial planning because you want to provide for eventualities or unforeseen circumstances. So once you are going to provide, that's why you take a lot of policies, insurance policies and various other things. So in the same manner, when you do financial planning, you have to do succession planning to ensure that these properties which you have created for your loved ones actually pass on to them. There is no dispute between them, your loved ones, and it takes in a properly legal manner, and you are avoiding disputes between them, and you are even getting the advantage of doing a lot of permutations and combinations. And one of the most essential things to be kept in mind is the fact that even if a particular person is a nominee in a particular bank account or in a particular insurance policy, that particular person is just a trustee of that property. He does not become entitled to the property. The person who is entitled to that property is decided by whether, like I said, whether the person has made a will or not. If it has made a will, then as per the will it will go. If the person has not made a will, it will go to the heirs equally as per the rules of succession. So the myth that is there that okay, if you are a nominee in a bank account, I am entitled to all the monies therein, or if I am a nominee in a flat, then I am entitled to the flat, that is not true. You are just a trustee of that property. When a particular person gets a probate or LOA, you are supposed to hand over the management or the administration of property to that particular person. You can't retain that property. It does not belong to you. It will go as per the rules of succession. If there is no will, if there is will, as per the will. So this is one of the essential things to be kept in mind. With your financial planning, start your succession planning, and you can always revise your succession planning by consulting a particular legal expert and who can guide you. So thank you so much. This is all from me today. Thank you so much for joining.